So welcome. I am Helen Graves, College of the Canyon's new instructional designer. And today I want to introduce you to the practical ins and outs of creating effective instructional videos for your course, because it's one thing to include video, but if you want students to actually watch and learn from your videos, you got to make sure they're done well. So for many of us, our college education was spent largely sitting in lecture halls and classrooms, listening to professors talk and talk and talk. And even if that works in face-to-face situations, and actually research is showing that lecture-based teaching, as you may already know, is not especially effective, it's definitely not going to work in the asynchronous world of online learning. When done well, video is a great strategy to add to your online teaching bag of tricks. So let's first talk about why you would want to use videos. There's no doubt that it's beneficial to put a little face time in your asynchronous online class. The use of video and audio brings you into the course. It adds that human aspect that many often say is missing from the online learning environment. Video can definitely create a stronger sense of connection and a more nuanced and robust level of communication than just text on a page. Being able to see and hear you promotes instructor presence, which has been positively linked to increased retention, motivation, and learning in online courses. And all of those are great things to have going on in your course. Additionally, in accordance with Universal Design for Learning principles, providing content in multimodal formats, meaning not just text, but you've got images and video and audio and whatever else, supports learning differences. Sure, you got your textbook, but why not also create short, pithy video lectures or what have you to provide the content in a visual and auditory format for students who are maybe challenged by text or don't like to read for whatever reason. So when might you use video? So there are a number of opportunities. You could greet them with a short, "Hi, I'm glad you're here," welcome video when your course opens up. You could add a short introduction video to your module overview pages, introducing the topic, giving them the context for learning activities. You could provide screencast directions for accessing materials, for the use of an app or a program, or navigation to and through the course shell, all of which can be very helpful for students. Do you find you're getting the same question over and over? Or maybe you're noticing a common mistake in students' work. You can create a quick screencast providing clarity on a topic or addressing an error or reteaching a concept. And this sort of quick down and dirty tutorial could be even more effective and helpful than lengthy written comments and can be shared with everyone as an announcement. And there's something called explainer videos, which are typically short animated videos, often using tools like Vyond or Powtoons, or that use simple graphics and straightforward language to explain or illustrate abstract or difficult concepts. So those are just some of the ways video might be useful in your course. A recorded instructional video isn't going to provide the same experience as an in-person lesson where students can ask on-the-spot questions, offer ideas or counter arguments in real time. But when done well, instructor-created videos, as I mentioned before, can really be a powerful tool to use in your online class. So what tools are you going to need in order to do video? A webcam, a microphone, and good lighting, and a recording or editing tool. And that's pretty much it. There are a variety of recording tools available: Camtasia, Adobe Spark, Canvas Studio, Screencast-O-Matic. If you do a quick Google search, it will undoubtedly give you results for hundreds of other tools. Well, maybe not hundreds, but a lot of other tools. I just named some of the popular ones. I really like Screencast-O-Matic because it's very simple to use. It's got a good set of basic editing tools, and they provide a nice set of a series of tutorials for learning how to use it. And it only costs $15 a year, which is really quite a deal. Plus, it's got an integration with Canvas, so you can access it right from the rich content editor on the pages in your Canvas course. One little side note to be aware of is the integration uses a single sign-on process, so you have to make sure when you're setting up your Screencast-O-Matic account that the login credentials match your College of the Canyons account or whichever Canvas account you're going to be using it for, so that it will be able to use the LTI and integrate with your Screencast-O-Matic. And the bummer for adjuncts, if you're teaching at multiple colleges, is you don't have, because your credentials are different at the different colleges, you don't have the ability to use the LTI in all of your different instances. And it's okay if you don't use the LTI. It just means you're going to embed the videos manually instead of through the rich content editor, but it still works just as well. So a couple of tips. You're going to want to do some test recordings, just really short little clips to check your sound quality in particular. I'm on a Mac and I tend to get fine results with the built-in microphone. You may want to invest in one of those little snowball microphones like this. They're pretty easy to procure. They're not expensive. They have a nice little stand so you can put it right on your desktop or wherever and speak into it. And that way you can be more, you can weed out any of the background noise more likely because you're speaking right in the microphone. But you don't have to get fancy with something like that. You can just use, well, test whatever you've got on hand and see if you're getting good results. You want the sound quality to be good. Bad audio can be very distracting for your viewers, but you don't have to go for studio quality sound. I would recommend being on screen when times when seeing you is an integral part of your message, like your welcome video. For lectures or other presentation type videos, it may be fine just to have the visual presentation and your voice. Another idea, and it's something you can do pretty easily in Screencast-O-Matic, is to be on screen for the first introductory remarks, you know, the first 15, 20, 30 seconds, and then swap over to your desktop or your presentation or whatever it is for the remainder of the video. That way they get to see you, connect with you, and then you go into your content. If you are going to be on screen, you don't need fancy lighting. You just want to make sure you're not backlit. We've all seen the people on Zoom who look like they're in witness protection because the light is coming this way and so we don't see their face. You just want to make sure you have good, even light on your face. But again, you don't need to get fancy with all of the photographer level equipment. The other tool that can be very helpful for video creation is Canva. Not to be confused with Canvas with an S. Canva is a graphic design application that makes it super simple to create great images. And all of the images you're going to be seeing throughout this presentation and probably any of my other ones have been done with Canva. They provide a large collection of pre-built templates that you can customize. So for example, if I were, I'm not in Canva, but if I were to pick the LinkedIn banner, I would then see about, I don't know, 15, 20 different templates that I could pick one that I kind of like, and then I can customize it with color or font or a different image or whatever it is. So they give you a lot of good starting points. You're not starting from scratch, and then you can customize it in the way you want. It's also got a library of license-free photos and graphics, so you don't have to worry about copyright issues. And they've also got a great set of tutorials for learning how to use Canva, as well as some basic graphic design. There is a premium version, but the free version is probably good enough for a starting point. They have a lot of the same tools. So that's kind of it for the basics on equipment and the why and all of that. What I want to do next, and then I want to open it up for your comments and questions and maybe experiences with video. I want to first walk you through 4 specific steps that are going to maximize the effectiveness of your videos. So the first step, and probably the most important one, is to keep it short. edX, if you're not familiar with that, they are a online learning platform, did an incredibly comprehensive study of almost 7 million video viewing sessions. And what they found was that almost all students watched the whole thing when the video was less than 6 minutes. At that point, the engagement time started dropping pretty dramatically. It fell to less than 50% for videos that were 9 to 12 minutes long, and a dismal 20% viewership for videos that were running longer than 12 minutes. Yikes! Now, you may be thinking, but Helen, people watch videos longer than 6 minutes all the time. Yes, we all love to binge watch Netflix, and many of us even love our educational TED Talks and Khan Academy, who you'll notice, by the way, keeps his videos short. But, and I am sorry to be the one to break it to you, most of our lectures don't have the compelling storyline of Outlander, nor do most of us have the presentation style that is as polished and dynamic as Sal Khan or Brene Brown. When it comes to educational videos, long is not good. And so that translates into 2 specific strategies. First, you're going to want to chunk your content into segments. Instead of doing one long 45-minute lecture, break it into several topics. Aim for 5 to 7 minutes, that kind of magic window, but do your best not to go over 9. And these segments don't have to be standalone, although they might be. The point is to just keep each session within that magic 6-minute window. So you can do a series that would ultimately be your full 45-minute lecture, but you've gotten very topic specific, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And so you've been able to chunk it. The second thing you want to do is keep your topics very focused. 6 minutes is actually a lot longer than you may think. If you're the kind of instructor who likes to kind of meander your way to the point that you're making, the 6 minutes is going to be up in no time. So meandering is not going to be an effective method for asynchronous instructional videos. You don't have a captive audience in the same way you do when you're in a lecture hall. So you want to be focused and concise. You're going to lay the foundation, you're going to make your point, and then you're going to wrap it up. Besides increasing the likelihood of student views, recording in those short chunks actually means it's easier to re-record and update individual topics as needed. You don't have to do the whole thing over again. You're just doing that one piece of it. And it also makes it easier for students to review specific topics when they're studying. They can come back and just watch that chunk instead of trying to find the part they wanted to watch again in the big long lecture. The second tip is to use a script. I can hear some of you gasping at this suggestion, but before you scoff, let me make a case for a script, or at least an extensive outline. Most of us are not trained speakers, which means we tend to engage in frequent verbal fillers, ending sentences with right and you know, or repeating a word or phrase while we kind of figure out what we're going to say next. So then I said, and that happens because our brain is busy processing, and we, the speaker, usually don't even notice that we're doing it, but your listeners are noticing. So a script is going to alleviate that potential pitfall. Plus, it will help you keep your content short and focused. You've already got where you're going to go right there written down. You don't have to remember it or think of it or realize, uh-oh, I went off on this tangent that I didn't want to go off on, and now my video is 3 minutes longer than it was supposed to be. I had a professor who, I swear, her lectures took an extra 15 minutes longer than they needed to because of all of her verbal bad habits. It was very excruciating to listen to. When using a script, the key is to not sound like you're reading it. Many people unconsciously have a different speaking style when they're reading than they do when they're just talking conversationally. You can tell by the pacing, the way they're pronouncing words, that they're reading. So you want to practice a little bit with your script or your outline before you start recording. Again, from my own experience in an online grad program, I had an instructor who, bless her heart, took the time to create short weekly video lectures. And she even took the time to write out a script, but they were seriously marred by her narration style. It would actually sound like this. Practice a bit with your script before recording and have fun with it. Sure, you are. And so again, it was very difficult to listen to and really get the meaning because the brain was so distracted by the delivery style. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I pretty much always use a script. My colleagues like to joke that I script my Q&As. In fact, I've been using a script this whole time. And so there are ways to get comfortable with it and make it feel natural and still be able to make sure you're touching on all the points you want to touch on and not ending off in some far off topic that really wasn't germane to what you wanted to be speaking about. Using a script or an extensive outline doesn't mean you have to be robotic and 100% perfect. It doesn't mean you even have to follow it verbatim. Students really feel a sense of personal connection when they can see and hear you seemingly talking directly to them. So just embrace this idea that you're just being you and let them see who you really are. Little unexpected things can make you come across as human and approachable, which makes your content more approachable as well. I don't sweat it when my cat decides to walk across camera, as she almost always does when I'm on Zoom, or I may be going through my script and I'll suddenly think of a different word or a phrase that I want to use instead of what's written. That's fine. And I will let you in on a little secret. I occasionally say or pause while I'm thinking of something, even though I have my script. Oh, that's fine. It just makes it more natural, like you're just delivering a conversational bit of information. So the script is really more about keeping you focused and avoiding those verbal bad habits. It's not about perfection. You're going to want to speak briskly and enthusiastically. You'll want to include the natural pauses that happen in conversation and fluctuate your tone. Often people think that they need to speak slowly to ensure students are grasping important ideas. But studies actually show that slightly increasing the pace tends to foster engagement. That doesn't mean you should talk as fast as you can throughout the whole video, because that makes it hard to listen to as well. It just means speak normally and then include pauses at appropriate places so your listener can process what was just said. If it's a complex explanation, rather than slowing down, you can actually just remind your students they can pause the video and rewatch that part again if they want to listen to it over again. A nifty little bonus with the idea of scripts is that it can play double duty as your captions. You've already written it out. They already have proper punctuation, capitalization, and word matching. So no editing is needed. Just upload into YouTube, Screencast-O-Matic, or whatever video platform you're using. So the third tip is to keep your video content engaging and relevant. People don't pay attention to boring things, even if they should. What keeps our attention? When something is visually appealing, when it's interesting, and when it's useful or relevant to us. A talking head isn't especially visually compelling. We've all experienced that, I'm sure. So creating a visual presentation to augment your speaking points is not only going to add interest and visual appeal. If done well, it's going to actually reinforce the concepts for your listeners. A great way to increase engagement and relevance is to include a brief introduction, providing a context for how this video or this lecture series or whatever it is germane to their learning. You can even record a short introduction that is customized for each class, and then use the main segments of the lecture or whatever it is across multiple classes. That's a way to repurpose your videos. You could even include that introductory context as a text intro. So that's there on the Canvas page right above the video, and then they go and dive right into the video content. And remember how you're going to be doing short segments instead of one long video? Depending on your discipline, you can easily re-record and customize a segment in order to weave in current events or things that are topical and relevant to your students each term. Interaction is another way to add relevance and engagement. So provide guiding questions, either in your introduction or sprinkled within the video itself, that are going to help students focus on the learning. What's the topic of this micro lecture? In your own words, explain what you learned. What, if anything, are you still confused about? You can create a question that you think I, the instructor, so it's you talking to your students, create a question that I might ask at the end of this micro lecture and include what you think is the correct response. So you're just guiding them in how you want them to interact with the content that has just been or is being presented. So you can even in the video or in your introduction, direct students to actually write out their answers to the questions as they're watching or right after the video finishes. Let them know that kind of repetition of what they just learned, but in their own words, is going to likely improve their scores on the quizzes and exams. You could also even embed knowledge check questions or little self-assessments right in the video, if you have the software for that, like Studio does, or at the end by linking to a Canvas quiz. So you have your introduction, you have the video, and then maybe you have a link to a little very short, it could even be a 1-question or 2-question quiz that kind of checks their knowledge of the content. Another idea for making your video content relevant and meaningful is to incorporate it as part of a larger homework assignment or project, rather than just a standalone video that really isn't tied in with, or there's no clear connection with other parts of your course or your content. And one really fun way to create engagement is at the end of the video, close with a teaser that segues into the next topic. And this works really well if you're doing a series of short videos that are making up a whole lecture. So for example, after discussing the colonization of America, you might say, in the next video, we're going to talk about how red uniforms and hiding behind trees impacted the outcome of the Revolutionary War. So you're just kind of giving a teaser. Or on the topic of cell biology, you might say, is it really true that the human body replaces itself every 7 years? Watch the next video to find out. Yes, it's a little bit markety, but students are human and humans respond to the strategies that are used in marketing. That's why they're used in marketing, because it gets people to take action. So the final tip that I want to share is to beware of cognitive overload. Cognitive overload happens when working memory receives more information than it can handle comfortably. Extraneous details, confusing directions, overly complicated visuals all mean that your students' brains are distracted and have less ability to focus on your content. And this is true in all learning contexts, not just video presentations. So you want to keep any written text that is part of your presentation to a bare minimum. You'll notice with my slides, I include a mostly relevant image, and when text is used, it's a concise summary of the point I'm making. You want to get rid of 95% of the written content on the screen and just go with relevant titles, maybe some subtitles, or a bullet list of keywords or images that reinforce the content that you're presenting verbally. If you do have text on the screen, do not read it word for word. I'm going to say that again because so many people break this rule. If you have text on the screen, do not read it word for word. There's actually brain science behind this. Reading and listening involve different regions of the brain. So when you hear me speaking the same words that you're reading, usually at a different pace, it creates a kind of dissonance going on in your brain and interferes with learning. So an exception might be if you're using a very short quote, but honestly, unless you're certain that your audience doesn't read, there's really no point in reading the text on the screen. They're going to automatically do it themselves. Your job is to present your topic well and use strong visuals that underscore and reinforce what you're saying. So you want to choose your visuals purposefully. Think of distinctive and compelling ways to illustrate a key concept or a point, instead of the requisite image of a handshake to demonstrate the idea of partnership. Use tango dancers or peanut butter and jelly. Make friends with white space. An overcrowded screen is going to cause confusion. A clean layout and effectively using white space around images or text is going to focus the attention. It's going to improve comprehension, and it's going to give the brain a little bit of breathing space, that idea of cognitive overload or avoiding cognitive overload. If you have a lot of information to share, don't squeeze it into a single screen. Do it over multiple slides or screens. And if you're doing a screencast demonstration, how to navigate Canvas, for example, use arrows and boxes to focus your students' attention on the right thing. You don't have to become a trained graphic designer, but a few basics like these things are going to increase the watchability of your videos. If you are interested in learning some basics about graphic design, I highly recommend the Non-Designer's Design book by Robin Williams. No, not that Robin Williams. She is has a very engaging style of writing. She also includes lots and lots of examples for visuals and some fun practice activities. I wanted to kind of train myself a little more. I'm not a graphic designer, but I know what I like. I just don't know how to come up with it out of my own head. So I found this a very worthwhile introduction to the idea of good graphic design for presentations that I wanted to do. So short, focused, relevant, visually clean. Those are what are going to make your instructional videos engaging and effective learning tools. Now I want to check in with you. First, let me see, are there any questions or something that you would like me to clarify about what I've talked about? And I'll take a sip of water while you're thinking. Feel free to unmute.
I have a question, Helen.
Please.
And I should probably let you know I'm low on battery, so I don't know if I'm going to get cut off.
Okay.
Yet. I had to move downstairs, so I left everything upstairs, so I don't have my power cord. In tip number 1, where you talked about chunking it and leaving it to 5 minutes, my concern is that I'm organizing a particular lesson in just one page in Canvas. And so I'm embedding right now studio videos. So then if I have, I don't know, 7 or 8, I'm worried that that might be too much in one page for them to scroll through one big video and another video and another video. Do I need to make 2 pages?
I would probably recommend making the embed size smaller.
And I don't know how to do that. Okay.
Yeah, and it depends on what you're using. So I can't explain right now, but perhaps we can figure out a way to either Joy or Chloe or I or somebody can give some assistance. But that would probably be my recommendation, is not spread it over multiple pages, but to put the series on a single page. And if you're worried about the length of scrolling because it's too big, then just make the embed size smaller. And then if they want to watch it full screen, they can always open up full screen when they're watching a specific video. So that it gives the students the control over how they want to see the actual video itself. Does that make sense?
Yes, I haven't seen that option in Studio. I have with finding YouTube videos. I can adjust 3 different size options, but I haven't figured that out yet with Studio. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know that Studio actually gives you the option. You may have to, and I haven't played with Studio enough to know, we may have to explore going into the code and actually changing this dimensions that are in the code itself.
Got it.
But another suggestion, and I use Google for everything, any question I have. So you might, Colette, Google resize Studio video in Canvas or something like that and see if somebody has already done a little tutorial on how to do that.
When you say resize the video, what do you mean by resizing it?
So when it's embedded on a page, you know, the little rectangle is a certain size, and sometimes the embed size is pretty big. Other times it's smaller. And if you've got a series like Colette is talking about, and they're all embedded really big, it means they're going to have to scroll a fair amount to get to the bottom of the list. And she's trying to avoid that lengthy scrolling. Does that make sense, Carlos?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, one thought I had, Colette, for your situation is, you know, when you have if you made one longer video and then you broke it up in chunks by adding questions in the middle, and then when they answer the question, say, great job on these questions, let's see what happens next, or whatever, kind of like the marketing tool to keep them on the hook. So once they complete, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions, you know, if they're 5 minutes between questions or 3 minutes between questions, now you just had them watch a 35-minute segue. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Does that, and Helen, does that count for chunking and keeping it short?
In a sense, it does, because the idea of the chunking is that they're not just sitting passively watching something for 45 minutes and our brains kind of go into not sleep mode per se, but they're not engaged. So what you're suggesting, Carlos, in what I heard, is have them watch a segment, you know, 5, 6 minutes, and then engage them in a different activity, which is answering the questions for several minutes. So it's really a break before they go on to the next chunk.
Yeah, because then the other nice thing with, you know, I just went through some Studio training, or you know, you can see the analytics there,
right?
For how much they've seen or of the video, and then also if you have assessments there, you can kind of see if they're really getting it, you know, after they watch that 5 minutes, unless they were just letting it run while they were
right.
washing their car outside or something.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
And one thing you can also do with the Studio Analytics is maybe you test in one course. This is just me being, I have some marketing background, so the split test is a big thing. So maybe in one term or with one of your sections, you do the long video broken up with questions. And then in the other one, you do the actual separate video series, and you see which analytics demonstrate that more students are watching, to give you a sense of if there is a difference or if they seem to be watching both ways equally or something like that. So you can maybe do a little testing to find out what's working with your content.
Yeah.
What other questions or comments? And that was the second thing I wanted to ask you guys is, what experience have you had with video, either as a learner or as an instructor, that maybe wasn't working, or that you felt worked really well and you want to share with us as an idea?
I'll just say that in my courses, my feedback from my students has actually been very different from what you actually just said. I used to do very short little videos. And what I found was that my students' feedback was they would see, so let's say you're going to take a 50-minute lecture and you do 10 5-minute videos. They look at that on a page and they'll watch the first one and they won't watch the rest of them. And so what they told me was that they would rather see 3 or maybe 4 10-minute videos, or, you know, like that to them was overwhelming, as long as you weren't going into 45 minutes.
Right.
And so it surprises me when I hear you say, 5 or 6 minutes, because typically by the time, like if I'm going to do a lesson in a face-to-face classroom, I'm chunking that in 15 to 20 minutes. And so what I was trying to do is trying to replicate like that 15-minute thing where you, in order to really talk about a learning objective and then be able to present material and then do a check for understanding, you really can't do that in 5 minutes, not and have it be comprehensive to where you're not, doing so many. So I hear what you're saying, and I'm certainly not going to argue. I just, that's not what my students have told me. So I used to do that, and then I ended up redoing all of my videos. So I'm kind of stuck with the, I'm not sure what to do, but like Carlos, I've really been loving Canvas Studio. And so I have found that I can do a 12-minute video that have the questions be popping up on the screen.
Right.
And I feel like I can get away with a 15-minute video because they're interacting and they're answering the question.
Yeah.
That I'm just mindlessly watching.
Right.
So
right. And that
depends on the content too.
Yeah. And the study by edX was not an interactive. It was simply watching a recorded lecture kind of thing. And so it is a different context than what you're talking about. And you can get away with a bit longer. Really, my stress on that was just because I hear instructors say, well, I've recorded my 2-hour lecture and then I require students to watch it. And it's like, oh, honey, no, that they won't. And so just kind of maybe swinging the pendulum a little far the other way so they get a medium point of I need to chunk rather than give one big long thing. But anything you can do to add interaction is going to increase the amount of time that you can ask students to sit and watch something, because they're not just sitting staring at a screen. They're answering a studio question, or you tell them, okay, pause it and write down your answer to this, and then start the video when you're ready. You're just having them do different things so the brain is not going to sleep. Thanks for sharing that, Michelle.
Yeah, Helen, what's worked well for me, I teach administration of justice. So in teaching the law class, a lot of the different topics are codified by penal codes. So what I do is I find a lot of good YouTube videos of different either prosecutors or defense attorneys that have 3 to 4 minute explanations of the code, like robbery, and then they'll have like some actual video in that 3 or 4 minute explanation of what the elements of the crime are. So that's worked well for me. As far as being able to source that, and obviously having to make things if I can't find the appropriate, video for the topic on the fully online classes. So that's worked well because a lot of those are already formatted, they're closed captioned, and plus with a variety of different attorneys and again, prosecutors, they like that. They like to see more than just me.
Yeah, that's great. And actually the topic for next week, that's one of the things I make, is bring in guest speakers so that it's not just always you. One thing I would point out about the difference between doing a lecture in person versus online, there is something just for the human brain, when we're watching a screen, there's almost a dissociative element to it. We're just not as engaged. And so that's where you can maybe get away with 30, 40, 50, 60-minute lectures in person, because there's just something about the way the brain sees a live person different than seeing somebody in a little Zoom window. And there's so many other things competing for attention. So you just kind of want to balance that, the idea of you're kind of in person, but you're not really in person, and you've got the whole dissociative effect of the video coming into play. Any other questions or comments that you wanted to share, or has anybody done much with video? It sounds like Michelle has. Have any of the others, I can't talk, have any of the other of you used video pretty comprehensively at this point, or are you still dabbling?
Hi, this is Regina. I am not even dabbling.
Okay.
I hate myself on camera. So, I mean, it's one thing to be on a Zoom and talking with others. It's another to be like just focused on in recording. So I've always struggled with it. So I've done some audio stuff, but I haven't done a lot of video stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm taking all of these things in and going to all this stuff. I'm super excited that we now have Canvas Studio. That was a big one for me too, was trying to find the right tool that was, super easy to use. I have Camtasia and I have used it to edit some videos for a course and that kind of thing. But Camtasia is a little bit like using AutoCAD, right?
It's got a steep learning curve. Yeah.
Yes. It's a big product and it does a lot of very cool things. But if you're trying to do something quick and short, it's not necessarily the best tool.
Yeah.
So, I'm just now beginning to jump into that arena and psych myself up to start creating videos in a different way.
Yeah. So one recommendation would be, because our brain is innately geared to like looking at faces. We like that. And we like hearing voices, but faces, I mean, vision is really the thing. So in whatever way works for you, my recommendation is to put student need in the forefront and hate seeing myself on video in the background. They're both still going on, but reverse the order of them so that you're really focusing on, this is really going to help my students, and eventually I'll get used to seeing myself on camera.
Right. Well, like I said, I think Canvas Studio just offers such a greater opportunity in that venue, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be me talking. It can be me talking in a tiny little corner, but
exactly
really being focused.
You've got the screencast.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm much more excited about that opportunity now than before.
The platform that Studio uses is Screencast-O-Matic. So if you already know it, or if you're interested in it, it will dovetail right into what Studio is using. Michelle?
I was just gonna comment on Regina. I totally get you, Regina. In fact, most of my videos, I don't show my face, but like Helen was suggesting, I might start the video with, hey, it's Professor Michelle. We're going to talk about blah, 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 blah. And then I turn the webcam off, and then I go, and then maybe 5 or 6 minutes in, you can, and Studio, Regina, has the ability where in that edit mode, you can turn your webcam on for a certain amount of time, and then you can pop back in. So at a certain, maybe 6 minutes in or 5 minutes in, you go, hey, are you still listening? Right. So all of a sudden your face pops back in there like, oh my God, she's really here. And then you can hide yourself again. And so there's ways that you can do that. And like Helen was saying, it's through Screencast, but in your edit mode inside Canvas Studio, there's a way that you can turn the webcam on for only a certain, like your little face is only for this amount of time. And then you turn it on for, 10 seconds so they can see you say, hey, are you still with me? And then you turn it back on. And so in a sense, it's like the students never know when Regina's going to pop in and say, are you still with me? So that's kind of a way to, it makes my students say it makes them giggle because they never know when Michelle's face is going to just pop in there. And there is an entertainment factor in there.
Yeah, have fun with it.
Faculty who wear a different hat every single time, or, wear funny glasses,
or they change their background.
Yeah, change their background or do something. But I agree with you, Regina. I don't have my camera on most of the time. I don't, because my feeling is they don't need to look at my mug. I would rather they listen to what I'm saying, but if it means me checking in with them to see if they're still there, there is an entertainment factor in that.
Yeah, have fun with it, definitely.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's pretty ironic because for, 10 years now, everything in my classroom's been recorded, But the difference is I'm live, I'm teaching,
Right.
I'm moving, I'm talking, you know what I mean? Like, and
Right.
when you record this way, you're sitting in a chair, you're stationary, you're looking directly at the camera, and I'm like, that's just really uncomfortable for me. It's not the way I teach. It's not my style of teaching. So it makes it harder for me to deliver it with good sincerity and, you know, not looking stiff.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Michelle.
The only other thing I was going to suggest, Regina, is the pause button is your friend. So I will say 3 or 4 sentences, and unlike Helen, I'm sorry, Helen, I don't use a script. I hit the pause button and I collect my thoughts, and I will talk for, you know, a minute or two, being, you know, clear and concise. I do have an outline. I'll hit the pause button. I'll pause my recording, Regina, and then I will collect my thoughts again, and then I will hit the pause button. You can hit the pause button as many times as you want so that you are collecting your thoughts and you're not sounding robotic. But people forget, they think once they hit record, oh, it has to be a one-shot deal. No, hit the pause button, collect your thoughts, and then hit record, and it will pick up right where you left off.
And for someone who has fancy equipment, I have seen people create a little recording area in their home, and they have a camera on a tripod and a little whiteboard, and they kind of do like they're presenting a lecture in a classroom. So it feels more normal, if you will, than just sitting at a desk and staring into a camera screen. So you can just play around and see what works for you. It's just video can be really great in an asynchronous class because you are able to bring in you. And I'm not a data person, so I don't remember the name of the researchers, but they did research showing across a number of different, anyhow, their data showed that connection with the instructor was the single biggest impact in student success in the course. And so it's really vital when they're not with you in the classroom that they have some way of feeling connection with you in the online environment. Any other questions or comments or things to share before we wrap up for today?
Maybe I have one real quick. I was
Sure.
curious. You were reading a script. Are you actually seeing this scroll in front of you somewhere on a big screen in front of you?
Yes, I have my screen and I have the Zoom window small off to one side, and I have my Word document open in the middle with the print fairly big, and I have the chat over on the other side. So I'm not, and you may be able to tell, now I'm looking at my camera, now I'm looking at my script. And so I have it positioned so that I kind of look like I'm looking at the camera, and I just scroll it as I'm talking so that I don't forget what I want to say, but I am not clearly reading a script as I look down here and you're seeing the top of my head.
Thank you.
Certainly. There are other tools. I mean, there's actual teleprompter tools and things. You can get free software that I have tried as well. But for me, just using the Word and scrolling with my mouse as I go through works fine for me. So experiment with it a little bit. Well, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us here today. I've enjoyed talking with you. I know that the recording will be on the Design Series webpage, which I meant to get the URL for and I don't have, but if you ask Joy, she will have it. And next week's topic is on engagement, engagement with your content. The week after that will be student to student and instructor to student engagement. So we're going to spend two sessions on engagement. And if you want to come, great. Otherwise, I will see you at another topic. Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.
I was just going to say that you might consider putting your name in the chat. If for those of you who want professional development credit, that would be an easy way for Joy and Chloe to document your attendance. I know Carlos did, I did. Colette and Regina, you might consider just putting your name in the chat.
And I also have, I think I get a list from Zoom, so, and I can send them that list as well. But thank you for mentioning it, Michelle.
Yeah, this is Regina. I'm actually in a car. I can't type my name into a chat. So if you could
Okay,
send
so
the
I'll
list
put
in,
Regina was here.
Okay,
yeah, right?
excellent.
That would be great.
And we got you asking questions and making comments, so we know you were here, so.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, Regina, you are documented in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. I'll see you at another time. Bye-bye.
Bye.